Hello, I'm Ben, and today I'll talk about the history. I'll talk briefly about the history of inundation modeling at Google, at the flood forecasting initiative at Google. So, in the inundation modeling team, we asked the question, how do we predict flood extent based on the outputs of the hydrological model? And we had a few approaches over the time. So we began with hydraulic models that I will elaborate more about. We'll continue about our current approach, which is local ML-based model. And I'll talk briefly about our future and what we have started recently, which is really global ML-based model. So what is the hydraulic model? It's like just solving numerically the flow equations. And for that, for doing this accurately, we need high resolution elevation maps. And the currently openly available elevation maps are of low resolution or not high enough quality. So we've generated DMs ourselves, and we had to run a lot of simulations. So for that, we used Google TPU supercomputers. However, this approach, we found it's not very scalable. And the reason is that to create elevation maps that are useful for this task requires a lot of manual labor in removing bridges and things that water can flow below. So it's very labor intensive. And also, even on the compute perspective, like to run this globally at high resolution is not scalable even on our TPU supercomputers. So the next step was ML-based models. So the advantage of using ML is that we do not need the DM, the elevation maps. We can just learn to correlate between water level or discharge to the actual inundation at the ground. So for that, we create a data set that depends on remote sensing. So we get Sentinel-1 imagery, we get discharge from our models and try to learn the correlation. And the simplest model is just a per pixel thresholding model. For each pixel on the map, for each like actual location in the world, we learn what is the discharge, and hereby above it, the pixel will be flooded. However, in many places, data is scarce. So we use Sentinel-1, and in many locations, there was no flood after 2015, which is when Sentinel-1 was launched. So we could not get any data point in our data set to train the model in that location. And that limits our scaling to new locations, and that's a problem. And today, what we are working on is like the next iteration, which is a really global model that is not, the weights are not per pixel, are shared among the, like across all the pixels in the world. And for that, we use like per pixel features, like the statistics of flooding in that location, like water occurrence and stuff like that. And the big advantage is that we can learn to predict flood extent in locations that we have not seen floods in the past. This approach is more limited in accuracy compared to the previous approach because we need to generalize to unseen locations. But we are thrilled about this, and if you are working on a related task, let us know. I'll be in the booth downstairs. Yeah, and I think that's it.